The political structure in the UK right now is somewhat of a minefield. Now, May the 2nd is quickly approaching, and for a lot of people, we're going to be facing local elections, myself included. I thought I'd take this time to just highlight some of the recent things that Conservatives have done, things that they keep pushing, and things that they are going to continue to push. And immediately after this, I will be looking into Charlie Elphrick's voting record specifically, just for anyone who might be in my local area. So, first and foremost, and I'm going to do my best to stay away from Brexit. Food. Food banks have skyrocketed since the Conservatives took over. Education has been cut over and over again. Schools across the country keep saying we don't have enough money to teach your children for 5 full days a week. And now they're coming forward and saying, yeah, we now don't even have enough money to feed these kids. The Conservative response to that was to simply take more children off of free school meals. Of course, these are all children from low-income families, which is a devastating blow. And as charities have warned and have stated, for a lot of kids, this is the only hot meal that these kids will actually get that day. We go into just this past summer, where schools and charities were frightened and put out warnings because they didn't know how the kids were going to eat. Despite what Theresa May comes out and says, the national debt has not gone down. Austerity is not used to balance the budget. The national debt has, like everything else, skyrocketed, putting us in a much weaker financial and economic position. Number of jobs in the UK hasn't gone up. They have simply redefined what being employed is. And when they actually calculate the unemployment number and the employment number, it's not actually the amount of people who live in this country who aren't working, because you can kind of give some credit for that. I mean, you can kind of see the reasoning of a student who doesn't need to work isn't classed as unemployed. Okay, you kind of follow that. A stay-at-home parent who doesn't need to go to work, okay, you can kind of class that. But someone who's 5 minutes late for the job centre and gets sanctions which we know have been incentivised and are target driven in the job centre by the DWP, well, they're now classed as not actively seeking employment. So, you see where this goes? And of course, famously, the government classes you as full-time employed if you have an hour's work a fortnight. In reality, we are in a much worse position now than where we were 9 years ago, and it is entirely the Conservatives' fault, despite how much they want to blame Labour. Then, of course, we have the NHS. The NHS, which is being spearheaded into the ground. And the latest atrocity is that the NHS has been told that they can save millions by reducing their breakfasts. An NHS breakfast is piss poor at best, and yet they want to take that away. And again, the money is there for the NHS, but it's being diverted into private hospitals. Private hospitals which are now able to claim charity tax status, meaning they don't pay tax, but tax on regular NHS buildings has gone up. Then we have the police and knife crime. Well, knife crime, as we all know, has skyrocketed, and the Conservative government's response is to cut police funding. Theresa May was told way back when she was Home Secretary, don't cut the police budget, we are vital, we are needed, and it's going to leave us open to more crime and more terrorist attacks. That is exactly what has happened, yet she has ignored these warnings. Cameron ignored these warnings, and now Theresa May as Prime Minister, she continues to ignore these warnings, with the official stance being there is no direct correlation between the lack of police funding and the rise in knife crimes. Now, it's not just the lack of police funding that has done this, of course. It is also cutting and destroying after-school programs to help kids get out of that gang mentality and that gang culture. But of course, they've been cut. And who gets the blame for this? Not the politicians who voted for this, but nurses and teachers. Again, nurses and teachers have been cut to buggery, and yet they get the blame because politicians have cut funding to the police. On an environmental level, we have now allowed fracking into the UK. This is after now a massive 99% of the world's scientists are saying climate change is a serious fucking issue. We really need to sort this. 12 years and we done gone fucked it up beyond repair. But of course, the Conservatives love their donors. So Michael Gove, Theresa May and the rest of the Conservative Party have sat back and allowed fracking to take place. And while some Conservatives like Esther McVey love to push forward the idea of, well, yes, of course we need to do something about the environment, well, they weren't protesting against fracking. They're still not protesting against fracking. They're not publicly stating the horrendous, disgusting poisons that are spewed into the air, into the water because of fracking. Silence is complacency. Saying something very briefly on Twitter and then not actually following on it, or not even bringing it up at all, well, you're pretty damn sickening. Then, of course, we have universal credits, something that a lot of people have focused on, and with good reason. Universal credits is the clearest attack that this Conservative government has launched on the UK. Universal credits have been proven over and over and over again to have no actual benefit. There is no upside to universal credits. And while Theresa May, Amber Rudd, Esther McVey, Ian Duncan Smith before them all stand up and say, well, you'll bring up these one and odd individual cases. I don't know anything about the individual cases. There are only so many individual cases before it becomes the feature and not the bug. And we passed that a long, long time ago. Amnesty International have warned that the Conservative government are selling out human rights from underneath us in order to get a deal with America. Leaks have been proven. We've had leaks saying that the Conservative government are going to make the NHS a part of the American healthcare system. Now, I have friends in America, and the general consensus is American healthcare is shit. Because it is. The NHS, when funded properly, and again, the money is there, is a fantastic health service and saves money in the long run. Study was done in America by the Koch brothers, who are amazingly against any kind of national health service. And even their study that they wanted to condemn, well, their study proved that a single-payer healthcare service like the NHS saves a country billions. Then, of course, we have Theresa May's moronic and Trumpian approach to international diplomacy. The fact that many security councils have warned against certain deals that are coming up, and she has ignored them, essentially saying, well, it's my way, go to hell. Very Christian of you, Mrs. May. We are in an appalling position, and it's not because of Jeremy Corbyn. It's not because of Labour, and it's not even because of Brexit, though that's not exactly doing us any favours. This country is in such a shit state because we have been led by conservative Tories since 2010. And hell, even Labour before that was a Tory. The only difference between Tory Labour and Tory Conservative, well, it's the same difference between Coke and Diet Coke. So, if you are in one of those areas on May the 2nd and you are, it is a local election, please do not sit on the sideline. Your vote matters. If you're in a Conservative constituency and you don't vote, the chances are the Conservatives are going to keep their talons in. And unfortunately, in areas like mine, that is why we've had to suffer Charlie Elphrick for so damn long. Your vote matters. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but you certainly need to vote. If you care about this country, if you care about children being fed, if you care about the homeless epidemic, if you care about crime, if you care about fire and rescue being cut over and over again, if you care about our servicemen and women, if you care about this country in any way, shape or form, you need to vote. May the 2nd. This could be a real game changer.